This session's on pricing for growth. So about a year ago at our last conference at Wharton, we asked for your feedback. And response number one was 100% of you wanted more Wharton. And then 127% of you wanted a discussion on pricing strategy. So I went to Clark. I'm really excited. 200% of our audience wants something, and they're very persuasive. And he said, Tom, buddy, I think you got a data problem, and I think you got a math problem too. So I was like, okay, well, let me look at it. And so I looked at it, and I want to thank Joe Allegra for voting 47 times for pricing strategy. But so here we are. Clark worked his magic and came up with Professor Zhang, who's a world expert in pricing strategies. He's been at Wharton for nearly a couple decades, and he's going to take us along and help us think about our pricing strategies and value. So here we go.
All right, thank you so much, Tom. I think this works, right?
Yeah.
Working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It should work. I know that you already have a fantastic day, okay? And you had two very good professors. And for me, in fact, I already have one regret. Okay, the regret is that I didn't know that I'm going to be speaking after Monty Fletcher. If I knew that, I would ask for more money for sure. And so I really need to lower your expectation a little bit. Okay? And number one, that I have no idea about baseball for sure. Okay? I went to Phillies baseball game once, and with a free ticket. I stayed for 2 innings, and I just couldn't stand it. And also that I'm a beer guy. I'm not a wine lady. Okay, so that you get that out of your head. And also that the people I normally teach, they tend to stay at night in the hotels and doing math. Okay, I don't know what you guys do. Okay? And so today is very, very different. Okay, so the basically what I do is a little bit different, but I hope that is actually relevant to what you do, and definitely that will provide some context for you to think about your own pricing, and give you some inspirations in terms of how you may actually do your pricing when you go home. Okay, so that's essentially my objective, and. I was one of the things I do have that's different from everybody else today is the fact that I have 2 PhDs. Okay, I in fact first went to University of Pennsylvania to study for the history and sociology of science. After that, I went to University of Michigan and studied economics. Not Michigan State, right? Michigan. Right. Michigan, right. Sorry, Chris. I'm just kidding. But in any case, so you actually already have a pricing experience, right? You get buy one get one free today, okay? And that's absolutely true. In fact, that one of the things that I think that what Monty said is something that I don't agree with, okay? She was talking about the leadership, how good you are, and that at one point somebody would give up on the $52 million and then to work for Bobby. I don't know who Bobby is. Well, I would say that I would never do that. As a pricing guy, okay? I would never do that. In fact, when I graduated from University of Michigan, this is what happened, okay? I was actually studying economics. But I got a job offer from Washington University in St. Louis, okay? That's in the business school. They wanted me to teach marketing, okay? I had absolutely no clue what marketing was about, okay? And on the one hand, I've been teaching economics for 5 years, and I know everything about it. And on the other hand, that they offered me a much better salary. That was in 1994, it was like $69,000 plus 2 ninths, okay? Plus 2 ninths every year. So that was a very good salary. But on the econ side, they were offering $50,000 plus 2 ninths. Okay, that was a huge difference for a graduate student, right? And so I remember that I went to my advisor. He's actually the Google chief economist today. Okay, Havarian. So I asked him what I'm going to do, right? On the one hand, I know everything about economics. On the other hand, I have no idea what the marketing is. But on this side, the salary is so much higher than the other side. Okay, He gave me a career advice. I would give this same advice to everyone here, okay? He basically said, follow the money. Follow the money. That's what we do here, okay? Pricing is really about following money, okay? We're gonna follow money today. You're gonna see that when you follow money, there are a lot of different things you could do. And all those different things you do will contribute to your growth and profitability. That's essentially what we talk about today, okay? And indeed, this topic was given by Chris over there, okay, and Clark. And he was basically saying, why don't you talk about pricing and for growth, okay? So I'm sure that one of the first questions you will ask is, how is this related to growth? How is the pricing related to growth? Of course, there are two reasons, okay? Number one, that when we talk about the growth, we talk about the growth in revenues, right? If you look at the revenues, that's just price times sales. Okay, for academics, that's how we rate it. Okay, and the price is in there. Okay, and in many cases, you want to grow your profitability. Okay, I'm sure that the Michael Roberts tomorrow from Wharton, and he's going to talk about that. Okay, you need to grow your cash flow, grow your earnings, and so that your company will have more value. Okay. If you look at the profitability essentially has 4 elements in there, okay? Those 4 elements, so I just quickly read, you know all this, okay? I just want to do a demonstration. It's price minus variable cost times sales minus fixed cost. That's essentially the profitability function, okay? If you stare at this particular function, you begin to realize that, in fact, that the price probably is the most fundamental profit driver and on this equation. Right? The reason is because, for instance, if you set the price equal to 0, just see what happens. Right? You just have all the negative numbers. Okay? Why? Simply because everything we do in the company are cost incurring activities. Right? We come to the training like this. It's just all cost. Right? Somebody has to pay the bill. Okay? It's all the cost. But because of the fact that we have a price, we can transform the cost incurring activities into profitable activities. You need a price. Price is the only instrument we can use to capture the value we have created in the marketplace. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, but most important thing, you probably, I don't know if you know this, and definitely that we have done a lot of research and study on this. Essentially that out of those 4 profit drivers, we want to know which profit driver is the most effective in increasing a firm's profitability. Okay? So here's the most recent analysis we did. This is actually in the book that I would recommend to you at the end of the session today. And that's a book I wrote with one of my colleagues at Wharton. Okay? So basically what this pie chart tells you is that if you find a way to reduce your fixed cost by 1% without changing anything else, on average, how much your profitability for a firm would increase? Okay, it's about like 3%, probably less than 3%. Okay, if you increase your sales quantity by 1% without changing your cost structure, okay, how much on average your profitability will increase is about I think like a 3-some%. Okay. If you reduce your variable costs by 1% without changing anything else, okay, your profitability on average is going to increase by about 7%, let's say, okay? But if you increase the price by 1% without changing anything else, okay, your profitability on average is going to increase by more than 10%, okay? That's why price is not just a fundamental profit driver over here. It's also one of the most effective profit drivers. In fact, for academic scholars, this is what we say. We say that out of all the possible profit drivers, okay, price is the second most effective profit driver. You guys are all the CEOs, the CFOs, and you probably know what is the most effective profit driver. Do you know? What is out of all the possible profit drivers? Okay, what is the most effective profit driver? You probably want to know, right? It's good that you don't know, okay? The most effective profit driver is to cook your books, You can make it as big as possible. Okay? But you guys don't want to do that, right? You didn't even know, okay? You didn't even know. That's good thing, okay? So price, remember, price is the most effective legal profit driver. So that's why we want to look into it, okay? By the way, and if you look at it from this angle, okay, the price is a very important profit driver. It's also the most effective profit driver, okay? You look into the practice to see how much CEOs or the C-suite people will spend on pricing decisions, okay? What you tend to see is that, certainly based on our research, what you see is that most of the executives will spend a lot of time trying to create the value, right? You work on the production process, you work on the product design, you work on the employee motivations, and all those different things. You spend a lot of time there, okay? You rarely spend much time on pricing decisions, okay? So to me, that's just so odd, right? So odd. The reason is because it's almost like a farmer, for instance. You work so hard for the whole year. At harvesting time, you basically tell everybody, let's just take it easy. Farmers would never do that. I was a farmer at one point, okay? At harvesting time, you would rise up early and go to bed late at night. You pick up every grain, okay? We don't do that here, right? We don't do that. So that's essentially one of the things that I want to talk to you about today. You're going to see that, in fact, if you spend a little bit of time thinking about your pricing decision, there are so many different things you could do. In the end, they will drive your growth, drive your profitability. That's the message that you will get out of today's class, okay? And by the way, and Chris Clark actually sent me a study. I thought it was kind of an interesting study, okay? This study basically shows, this is by the Edison, okay? Basically that shows that the number one, okay? And those companies that grow faster, okay, tend to be the companies that really pay attention to pricing, okay? Use more price levers, okay? If you use more price levers, not only the growth rate is going to be higher, and also your average selling price is going to be higher too, okay? You're kind of wondering why that's the case. In fact, that once you realize you want to pay attention to pricing, next question you probably will ask yourself is that what kind of information I need to gather to make a good pricing information? How would I analyze the pricing information, put a pricing information together, and make a good, smart pricing structure, set a good and smart pricing structure, and in such a way that I can actually increase my profitability and also my selling price. I'm going to come back to this. You're going to see that there are actually very, very good science behind this outcome, okay? The fact that you use more price levers, ultimately the growth rate for you is going to be higher, and the average selling price may be higher, may or may not be higher, but in any case, your growth rate is going to be higher, okay? I'm going to come back to this, okay? And so let's start with the pricing decisions, okay? And I don't have an example from your industry yet, and I think that once I talk to you enough, and surely that I will produce an example that will capture everything I want to say. But this particular example is a made-up example, okay? That will illustrate everything I want to say. And you're going to see that it's very easy to follow, and it's a very good example, okay? Let's imagine the following. I'm going to ask you a question, okay? And after I set up the situation a little bit. Let's imagine that a chemical plant, okay, they need to use orens, okay, and they are paying like a $5 per oren and to an existing seller, okay. You are the inventor. You come up with a better oren, okay, that can last twice as long, okay. The cost to you is only $1 per oren, okay. The question I'm going to ask you is that. Us, the inventor or the entrepreneur, okay, how are you going to set the price? What the price you want to set in this case? Anybody? $10. Where is $10? $10. Why $10?
Double the life of the old one.
Double the life of the old one. Of course, you can charge twice the price. So that's first idea. Anybody else? So which basically means you're looking at the customer from customer perspective. That in fact this would double the life of course I can charge you $10. Anybody else? Yeah. $9. Why $9?
Because
You gotta give some discount, right? You're a new kid on the block. You can't really just go there and say, well, I'm gonna charge you $10 expecting that the firm would switch over to you, right? You probably wanna give some incentive, induce the buyer to switch, yeah. $8.99. Okay, that's actually a good one, right? So I think in consumer market normally works with the 99 pricing. Okay, people feel like oh this is lower price. Okay, and in business market probably it doesn't work as well. Okay, let's go back over there.
I might start at 7.
Why?
And over time increase it.
Okay.
And I would start at 7 because I have no credibility to prove that the glass is twice as long.
Right. So in that case, you probably want to be a little bit more cautious.
More cushion
Right.
for the buyer.
Right.
And then as I prove it, and I have a track record, I can increase it up to maybe 850 and make sure that I can retain my market.
Most of our MBA entrepreneurs would do something like that. They would say that we don't want to be too aggressive. Let's just set the price of $7. If the market reacts well, we're going to raise the price. But remember, your first price you put out in the marketplace is the price that will frame the value of your product. Okay? It's just so much easier if you start with high price, lower the price. You go to the customer and says, well, our price $10. You're such a good customer, I'll give you like a $7 price. Okay? Instead, if you go in the other way, it's just a lot harder, right? You start with $7. Later, you want to raise the price. It's just so much harder to do that. Let's give this gentleman a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just building on that point, and I think you hit it a little bit. Is you could set the price of what you think the market will bear, but for the initial purchase, you discount it to prove it out that it could go 2x.
Right. You do have, if you, in setting prices for new products, if you have to err, you remember err on the high side, not on the low side. Okay? Because on the high side, it's just so much easier for you to lower the price. Okay? If you set the low price, if you want to raise the price, that's just so much harder. This gentleman over here, yeah.
I would charge $4 and then a monthly fee for every month the overhead.
You charge $4 and then a monthly fee. And how you justify the monthly fee? Yeah.
Well, I don't know how long twice as much is, whether it's monthly or daily or whatever it is, but I factor it so that I'm going to actually make more than $10.
Okay.
The person only has the risk they have to buy into.
That's also a very, very good thought. Right? The point is that I want to sell the product to you. Not only I want to sell product to you today, I also want to make sure that you will come back and buy the product tomorrow. I want to build that relationship. I want to have that constant engagement, right? So the good way to do that, of course, that I'll put you on some kind of a subscription or something, right?
Yeah.
And maintain continuity. Yeah.
A question that comes up for me, I don't know if it's relevant or not, which is like, what's my market share in this situation? Like, am I just trying to maximize my existing customers, or can I go gobble up?
Remember, you're an inventor. You're the new
I'm the only
new
person
kid on
that
the
makes
block.
O-rings in the world?
Yeah, you are inventing this.
Got it, okay.
You can do it better, and you really have the whole
So you're
field
not-
to you.
So you already got 100% market share?
Right.
No.
Not 100% market share.
Zero.
I have
100% market share for this type of orange, right? So somebody else is selling lower quality ones.
How much does it cost?
It's $1.
No, the other guy.
Oh, the other guy, we don't know.
We don't know.
Why you care?
Because depending on how much it costs them to make, I can just crush them.
Oh, in terms of how low you can go, right? How low you can go. Right, that could be another alternative. It's basically that if I know that, in fact, that my cost is just so much lower than everybody else, and yeah, twice as good, obviously. What I could do is just price very low and try to crash the competition. But if you're trying to crash the competition, obviously the competition is going to put up a desperate fight.
That's why I asked how much.
Then probably will ruin you in the process too, right? So that's also a risk strategy. But in any case, you got an idea, okay? You see that in fact that in this kind of a situation, different people looking at the problem from a different angle will set the different prices, okay? In practice, indeed, it is the case. A lot of firms do this so-called cost plus pricing. If my cost is $1, if I double it, that already is a high margin, right? If it's already high margin, I mean, you kind of feel nervous if you charge your price a little bit higher, right? But on the other hand, if you, like the previous gentleman over here, basically that I look at from customer perspective, and I know that in fact my product is twice as good, I should be able to charge $10. And at that point, I can offer some discount to make sure that the buyer would have an incentive to switch over. Right? So that's essentially another perspective. So you could have competition-based pricing, okay? You could also have the so-called customer-based pricing, okay? And but let me tell you that in fact that based on our research on the current pricing practices, you're going to see that in fact each one of those approach is not so sophisticated. Okay, it's not so sophisticated. In fact, it could lead to lots of different problems. Okay, if you want to find out what are those problems, how you're going to rectify those problems, you can look into the book that I will put out there at the end of the talk today. But I don't really have we don't have a whole lot of time to look into this. This is the simpler problems. Okay, so let's move on. And so what I want to talk about today is really something that we wrote a book on. Okay, that's the so-called smart value pricing. When you do smart value pricing, you don't just set a price based on your cost. You don't just set a price based on the competition's price. You don't just set a price based on what the consumers can bear. Okay, what you really want to do is to go through 4 different steps. Okay, you're going to see that in fact, if you take this home, and when you set your prices, you go through 4 steps. You will definitely see some improvement in your growth of profitability or revenues. Okay. The first step you want to do is to measure the value that consumers place on your product. Okay. We're going to get into the details. Okay. Essentially, what you want to do is to put yourself in the shoes of your customers, looking at your product or service. Okay. Ask yourself why customers are willing to pay anything at all for your product or service. What are the value drivers? What drives the value of your product? Okay, it will become more concrete as we go on. Okay, and once you measure the value, the second step you want to take is to do everything possible to enhance the value of your product before you sell anything. Okay, so that's the second step you take. Either change the product, enhance your services. Just basically that make sure that you provide the things that the customers actually value, okay, to enhance the value of your product or service. Number 3, the third step is actually very important, which is to communicate the value to your customers. Most sellers will assume that in fact that if customers are paying something for my product, they must know what kind of value they're getting out of my product or service. That's just never true. Okay, that's just not true. And you probably have a whole lot more experience than I do. But when I do some of the pricing consulting, that's one of the areas we always work on. Okay, and you're going to find that there are some good ways to communicate the value of your product to your customers. In the process, you also enhance the value. I'm going to give you some examples. Okay. Finally, what you want to do is to design a smart pricing structure to capture the value you have created in the marketplace. Okay, so there, of course, are a lot of different tricks you could use, including what we just talked about, right? High price and do the promotions and then so on and so forth. You go to a department store, that's essentially what they do, right? And anyway, so let's take a concrete step and moving forward and along those 4 steps, okay? Schematically, and this is what value pricing is about, okay? It used to be the case that firms mostly do this so-called cost-plus pricing. Okay, anytime you want to set your price, you need to figure out your direct cost. You need to figure out your overhead, and then you also need to figure out what is the right margin you need to capture. Okay, most of the finance people, including I'm sure the Edison, the company probably will give you this quota, basically, oh, your the rate of return has to be something for us to be satisfied, and then so on, right? So you have to have a certain margin built into your pricing, okay? So that's the so-called cost-plus pricing, okay? At one point that the firms became very wised up, okay? Wised up in the sense that this is, wow, we shouldn't really set the price based on our cost, simply because customers don't care about how much we cost and to produce the product. They don't actually know anything about it, right? If they don't care about it, why we set the price just based on the cost? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, okay? So then they began to do this so-called naive value pricing, okay? So they would say that let's just look at our product and service from customer perspective, okay? And then you can figure out what are the product benefits from the product, what kind of a benefit customers will get. And also you have a service benefits. What kind of a service benefit the customer will get. And then of course you have your brand image. The brand does matter and to the customers. What kind of value they get out of our brand, okay? You put them together, you charge what the consumer can bear, okay? So that's the so-called naive value pricing, okay? Smart value pricing does something different, okay? Essentially what we are saying is that yes, you have a product benefits, you also have a service benefits, you also have a brand image, okay? All those things have value. But before you sell anything, you got to do everything possible to enhance the value first. We're going to show you how. And also you got to communicate the value in the right way. If you do those two different things, you're going to see that in fact the value presented to the customers will be so much larger. Okay, will be so much larger. In that case, you see that you don't have to capture everything, right? You capture a big chunk of that value and leave something to the customer so that they will have an incentive to come back and to come back again, right? That's where the customer lifetime value, customer loyalty will come in, right? Loyalty always comes at a price. So you have to leave something to them and for them to come back to you, okay? So that's essentially what we are talking about, okay? So in that case, in fact, if you do the value pricing, a lot of good things will happen to you. You can read this. It's very simple. So we're going to move a little bit faster because there are so many things that we need to do, okay? So let's just take the first step, okay? In terms of measuring the value, how we go about measuring the value of our product and to the customers, okay? And in this case, essentially what we're trying to do is to, number one, to identify value drivers and quantify the value drivers. In the process, we find ways to enhance the value of our product, okay? And in this situation, typically we use the so-called economic value analysis, okay? This is something that last year that you did this value stick. Value stick is a little bit different from what we are talking about today. Okay, economic value analysis is essentially that you're trying to quantify from customer perspective what kind of economic benefits they're getting out of our product by looking into how they actually use our product. Okay, and so let's go back to this particular example. For instance, if we want to set a good price for this particular product, obviously that one of the things we can immediately do is to do economic value analysis. When you do economic value analysis, you basically have to look into 3 different components, okay? First component is the reference value, okay? For instance, if the customer is already paying $5 per orange to the competition, you can imagine that if the customer uses our product, the customer doesn't have to pay that $5 to the competition, right? So at the minimum, our product will provide that $5 value, okay? If our product is exactly the same as competition's product, okay? That's the so-called reference value. Reference value is the price that customer is paying for the competition, okay? And but we also know that in many cases, our product will be better than the competition's. Okay? The better part will provide the value to the customers. We want to quantify what it is. So that part is the so-called positive differentiation value. Okay? Third part is the negative differentiation value, because in many cases our product could be worse in some respect. Okay? The worst part of course will cut into the value that you provide to the customers. Right? You want to quantify what it is. And that part is so-called the negative differentiation value, okay? So once you quantify all 3, and this is how you would assemble and your economic value. You would have a reference value and add to the positive differentiation value, and then you deduct the negative differentiation value. The difference is the total economic value. The idea here is that if economic value of your product is $10 to the customer, okay, you just know the customer should be willing to pay up to $10 to buy this particular product, right? So that's basically what we are trying to do. We are trying to figure out how high our price can go, okay? How high our price can go. So coming back to the example, and if we want to do economic value analysis for this particular product, obviously that we have to do some research. We have to look at our product from a customer perspective, okay? If you do a little bit digging, you find that in fact that this particular chemical plant will use 200 orange every time they change the orange, okay? And in fact, they have to change the orange every 2 months, okay? The reason is because if you don't change them, then the chemicals will begin to leak and all that, okay? And cost of shutting down is $5,000, right? Because you shut down, you cannot produce anything. Obviously, there's some opportunity cost there, okay? And your new orange, obviously, that costs $1 like what we had before, okay? But to install the new orange properly, an adhesive must be applied to each orange, okay? So for every batch of a change of orange, you have to spend additional $1,000. Okay, so that's essentially the additional information we have dogged it out, and we can use the information to do economic value analysis. So only place where I need to use the board here is here. Okay, so we're gonna work out the math a little bit. It's very simple math. And if you have gone through high school, you are overqualified for this. Okay, but anyway, so it's a very simple math. The reason why I want to do this is because in the process of doing the calculation, you're going to find that indeed that you can squeeze so much good information, which will help you to make some very, very good pricing decisions. So that's essentially where we're going, okay? So I'm going to come back and ask you how you're going to use the analysis we just did, okay, to make your pricing decision. That's the question I'm going to ask you, okay? So in this case, if you do economic value analysis, you realize that number one, you need to find the reference value, okay? Reference value is basically equal to $5. Price of the competing product, that's $5. Okay, so we have our first component already. Okay, the second part is basically you want to find the positive differentiation value. There are actually two. Okay, the first positive differentiation value actually comes from where? Life, right? Reduce the number of shutdowns. And if you use the old orange, you're going to shut down 6 times a year. Okay? Every time it will cost you like $5,000. Right? But if you use the new ones, and you only need to shut down how many times? 3 times. And every time, let's imagine that you still have to incur $5,000. Okay? Total savings will be this much. Right? And if you switch over to new orange. Okay? And but the total savings should spread out over how many oranges? Should be 200 each change, and you're going to change it 3 times. Right? You're going to change it 3 times. So you basically spread out over this many oranges. Okay? Once you have done that, this should give you $25. Okay? But there is a positive differentiation value number 2, where that would come from. Huh? Cost per change. Well, that's already a cost. We haven't built any additional cost of change in there, right? So that's actually a good one. We did.
Labor cost to change
Huh?
for the adhesive.
I think the fact that one new orange is equivalent to 2 old ones, right? Which basically means one new orange is worth like $10. First $5 is counted over here, right? The second one should be the durability value, right? Just because it's more durable, you don't have to buy as many oranges, right? So that's another $5 in fact, right? But there is also negative differentiation value. That will come from where?
The adhesive.
Adhesives. So that's like $1,000, okay? And divided by 200, should be 200. Well, if you want times 3, we're going to times 3 over here too, right? So that's the same thing, okay? So which means this will give us $5, okay? So then if you assemble the economic value, what we have is that we're going to have $5 plus $25 and plus and $5 and minus $5. Altogether, this is going to be $30 economic value. Each orange will provide $30 value to this particular customer. So that's essentially what this analysis is about, okay? If you look at the process of doing this particular analysis, what kind of information you really get out of this that can help you make a good pricing decision?
Charge them $20.
You can charge up to $30, right? You can charge it up to $30 simply because I provide a $30 value. You should be willing to pay up to $30 to buy this particular product, right? I could easily go to this company basically saying, well, look, we jointly created this $30 value, right? Why don't we just split it? Okay, set the price equal to $15. Okay, that's the American way, right? And you would think that it's more convincing, right? It would be more convincing to set a price like this. But remember, without this particular analysis, we are talking about like $4, $7, $10. Once you get to $10, you feel really nervous, right? You feel really nervous. But now that we charge $15, we feel good about it, right? We feel very confident about it. So then you just start with this particular price. If you have some pushbacks from somebody, obviously you can do some discounting there, right? Okay, so that's the first use of this analysis. Anything else you can squeeze out of this?
Shutdown risk.
Shutdown risk. That probably will provide, basically what you're saying is that will provide a lot of additional value. If we know what it is, we can quantify it and put into this. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Was there a differentiation in the labor cost to change because we're doing it 6 times versus 3 times? So there's a value there too.
There is a value, right? So we haven't counted that. Right. So we would lump that all into this $5,000. Okay, we lump it all into $5,000. If you can find some way to articulate that and see what it is, and you probably could, put it into the calculation for sure. Okay. In fact, if I look at this, there are 5 different kinds of information you can get out of this. Okay. Number one, that what price to charge. We know that up to $15, we feel good about it. Okay. Number two, that to whom you want to sell first, right? Because when you do economic value analysis, you're going to find that some companies will get less value than others, right? Some other companies may get higher value than others. If that's the case, when you introduce the product in the marketplace, obviously you want to sell to the people that value your product the most, right? If you start with them, obviously that you will have much better time to sell the product and sustain your high prices, okay? So that's the second piece of information. Third piece of information is that you can easily come up with your script, okay, and to communicate the value, right? You notice that in fact that in this particular case, the biggest value driver is what? Shutdown cost, right? So that's the $25. If that's really the biggest value driver, obviously in the selling process, if you want to sell based on the value, that's a very big piece of information you want to communicate to your customers, right? So that's the third use of this particular analysis. In fact, mostly if you do some of the medical equipment companies, when they write up the sales manual, that's essentially what they do, okay? They will go to the doctors and tell you that we have this X-ray machine that basically save you this much doctor's time, this much nurse time, can do so many more X-rays a year and so on and so forth. And economic value is this much, and we only charge you so little. And that's the kind of a script they normally give to you, okay? And most importantly here is that through this analysis, you see that we really identify how to enhance the value of your product, right? Because you have essentially that three value drivers here, okay? There is one negative value driver over here, okay? Out of those 3, you know that this $25 is the biggest value driver, right? So most of our MBA students at this point would do some simulation. And they would say, well, how about this? If we actually develop our product in such a way that we make the product more durable, you don't have to shut down 3 times. In fact, you only shut down like 2 times. Let's see how much additional value we can provide to your customers, right? How much more we can charge them, okay? So that's one way to do the analysis. If you cannot reduce the number of shutdowns, and you can redesign your product in such a way that you can install the product much more quickly. If you could do that, every time your shutdown cost may not be $5,000 anymore. It could be like $3,000. You can, again, do a simulation, see how much additional value you will provide to the customers, right? So this kind of analysis really help us to identify, going forward, how we're going to push our product, in what direction we should push our product, okay? So that's another piece of information that's very, very valuable. The last one also is very, very valuable, which is not so obvious. It's basically that It really gave us some very good idea in terms of how we should capture the value in this particular marketplace. Okay? Imagine the following. If I do the analysis for some company that uses 200 oranges every time, okay, versus another company that uses 300 oranges every time, everything else are the same. Okay? What will happen to the value that the customer will get from our product? 200 versus 300 is lower or higher? Total value is higher, of course. But what about per orange value? Lower. It's going to be lower. You go through the calculation, you're going to see that it's lower. Okay. So now you have an issue. The issue is that the company that uses fewer oranges, they're willing to pay more for each orange they're buying from you, right? But for the company that uses more oranges, they are willing to pay less for each one of those oranges from you. What are you going to do? Volume discount. That's where the pricing structure will come in, right? You design a smart, intelligent pricing structure to capture all the values from everybody. Okay? Volume discount. More you purchase, unit price is going to be lower for you, and then so on. You're going to see that in fact there are so many different permutations, especially in your industry. Okay, I will do some illustration. You're going to see that in fact there are all different ways to collect the money. And depending on how you collect the money, and if you make it more sophisticated, and you're going to see that you're going to capture more of the value you have created in the marketplace, your growth rate definitely is going to be higher. That's really related to the pie charts I show you. That in fact that if you use more levers, and your growth rate is going to be higher, and your profitability is going to be higher, and so on. Okay. All right. So indeed that today, this is actually really interesting thing you notice. Okay. Pharmaceutical companies today, whenever they set the price, they justify the price setting with a so-called pharmacoeconomic analysis. Okay, the most expensive drug up to now. Okay, and in probably another year, you're going to have an even more expensive drug that's coming out of the market. I read in the Wall Street Journal just a couple of days ago. They were talking about a particular drug that would cost like $2 million. Right? You read this, right? And but this one is for the cancer, for the hepatitis C drug. Okay. In fact, if you use this particular drug, you can cure your hepatitis C. Okay. But for the patient, you have to pay like $94,500 and for the whole therapeutic process. Okay. That's about like 12 weeks of the drugs. Okay. So that's really that high. And you're kind of wondering, for producing the drug itself, the marginal cost is very low. How could you ever justify it and charging such a high price? This is what they do. Okay? They will tell you that in fact, they go to insurance company. They tell insurance company that in fact, if you don't use my drug, this is what would happen to a typical patient. Okay? And the typical patient is going to stay in the hospital for 3 days, see doctors for 3 times. They're going to stay in the hospital on average, let's say, 12 days. And they're going to, in fact, do the test number 1, test number 2. They also have to take drug number 1, drug number 2, and so on. They just list all those things you have to do to a patient. Okay? You add it up, this is like a $200,000, okay, to take care of a hepatitis C patient. But with my drug intervention, this is what will happen. You see doctors once, okay? On average, you probably stay in hospital 2 days, okay? Test 1, test 2, you still have to do, but you don't have to take drug 1 and drug 2, okay? Then the cost, if you add up the cost, that's only, let's suppose, $20,000. Still very expensive, but it's only $20,000. The difference, of course, is $180,000, right? Of course, it's the American way to collect half of it. Right? That's $90,000. Okay? So in fact, when they charge a high price, they make this communication to the insurance company. You can imagine the insurance company would realize, yeah, more money we spend on this particular drug, more savings we're going to achieve. Right? They probably are motivated to spend even more money, put your drug on the formulary, and spend more money on your drug. Okay? Typically, in this kind of situation, the pharmaceutical company will tell the insurance company, indeed, I will sweeten the deal. Okay? If my drug works, you pay this money. Okay? If it doesn't work, okay, we rebate part of the money to you. Okay, this is so-called performance-based pricing. So those two things really work wonders for the pharmaceutical companies. Okay, if you look at the growth driver for pharmaceutical companies today, price is the most important driver. Okay, just figure out a good way to jack up the price. Okay, and your revenue will grow. But of course, that's a very special industry, right? It's a very special industry. They do have a patent, and they can save lives and then all that. Okay, so that's the first part. You see that when you do the measuring the value, you find ways to enhance the value. And when you find a way to enhance the value, it's just so much easier for you to set the price. Okay, but then you have to take the next step. Next step is basically that you have to communicate the value to your customers, right? In that context, you realize it's just very difficult, simply because the value is literally in the eyes of a beholder, right? Like a beauty, okay? And for instance, for this particular Birkin bag, okay, I would not want to pay like over $200 for it, okay? That's just how much value it has to me, right? Well, I'm sure the ladies in the room know what is the price. What do you think is the price here? $20,000, okay, $20,000 price, okay? And you kind of wonder for this particular bag, how are you going to justify to charge $20,000, okay? Well, this is what a company does, okay? This is how the company will communicate. They will tell you, number one, that this particular bag is manufactured by French high-skill, high-cost labor, okay? It's not produced in China. It's not produced in India, okay? You just know that in France, not a whole lot of people are working in the first place, right? You're talking about the high-skill, high-cost labor. You just know they're not going to produce many, okay? They're just not going to produce many, okay? And that's number one, okay? Scarcity, okay? Number two, you see that they tell you that in fact that this whole bag will require 2,000 some stitches, require over 18 hours work to put them together, okay? That's the amount of time it takes to assemble a BMW. Of course, you can charge a BMW price, right? And with this particular price, this what's really amazing is that there is like a 2 to 6 year wait for this. It's really amazing, right? And by the way, this is not the most expensive Birkin bag, of course. The most expensive one is this one. Can you guess what the price is for this one? Huh?
Is it alligator?
It's alligator. It's not just an alligator. It's a Himalayan alligator. There are only 2 in the world. They kill one. Okay. And anyway, so how much do you think it is? Huh? No, that's not 140. This is the price. Okay, the price is over $300,000 for that bag. Okay, can you imagine carrying that bag, walking around? You just feel so good about yourself. I mean, that's the benefit. Okay, and the $114,000 is really somebody is keeping track of the first lady's bags. Okay, first lady apparently has a weakness for the Birkin bags. Okay, every time she comes out, she will carry a new one. Oh, she's right over here. And you add them up, it's over $114,000. We don't know how many more she's going to carry for the rest of the 2 years. Okay, and but anyway, here's another example: the value communication, how important it is. Okay. Remember that the Michelin at one point, then they always tell their customers our tires quality are higher than everybody else. Okay, we can charge a higher price for it. Okay, but the problem is that for most of us, for instance, right, you mount the tires on the car, and the car is not going to tell the difference. Right? If you say your quality is a little bit higher, how do I know? Right? Why that matters? Right? They all pretty safe. Okay, but how are you going to communicate the value in this case? And that little difference in quality really means a lot to you. They want to tell you that. How are you going to tell that story? Safer. Well, when you drive the car, right, it's all pretty safe. Whether or not it's safe is really depending on how you drive it. Right? What do you do? Well, they were smart. Here's what they did. They put a little baby on it. all of a sudden everything matters, right? A little thing really matters, okay? And you would definitely be willing to pay a little bit more to buy the Michelin tires, okay? By the way, here's a video I want to show you, okay? This is how, in fact, it really illustrates the fact that if you have something that's different from everything else, you are in driver's seat in setting your prices, and you basically set whatever price you want to set. Eric?
Is that the sound of money being sucked from wallets?
It's priced at $7 a cup.
Hi there, welcome to Starbucks. What can we get started for you?
How about a bank so we can afford the new coffee made from rare Costa Rican beans called Finca Palmolera?
Finca Palmolera.
Finca Palmolera. Actually, $7 is for the medium, the grande. You could skimp, and for $6, get a small. It was introduced at 46 Starbucks stores in the Pacific Northwest.
Wow, is that something you would buy?
No, not at all.
But hold the outrage. For some people, coffee tasting is like wine tasting. People like Melody Overton, who runs a fan site for Starbucks enthusiasts, where some were giddy over the prospect of sampling a rare coffee. Melody attended a special tasting.
I noticed all of these flavors and how it has so much going on in a single cup of coffee, and I'm like, oh, I like this.
So what's it taste like?
Fruity, juicy, clean. Definitely a little pineapple.
See, not words I associate with coffee. This type is expensive because it grows only at high altitudes and there are fewer cherries per tree.
And let the Finca Palmolera Coffee Challenge begin.
Jimmy Kimmel's staff asked folks if they could pick the new super premium Starbucks coffee.
I want to say this one because it has more of a richer taste.
Okay, I should mention that we didn't even bother to get the $7 coffee. We got a pot of regular coffee and poured the exact same coffee in both cups.
This one's a smoother flavor, the other one's slightly bitter.
I believe it's this one. It just tastes richer.
It kind of has a beany taste. It tastes like a bean.
I would put $2 to $3 on this cup, preferably over the second cup.
It all tastes the same.
Using his bean.
The last one is a beer drinking guy.
It all tastes the same.
New York.
All right, so they basically, I think that the video will tell you that indeed that when you have something different, if you dare to charge a high price, and customers frequently will give you the reasons as to why they should pay the high price. In fact, most sophisticated people will give you more reasons, right? You see the last one, the beer drinking guy, it's all the same. He can tell the difference. Okay, there is no difference in the first place. Okay, so that's essentially what we are talking about. Okay, you see that once you do the value measurement and find out the value drivers, you come up with the script in terms of how you're going to sell the value. Okay, you communicate value to the customer. It does make a difference. You boost up the value. Okay, boost up a consumer willingness to pay. So that's essentially the first 3 steps we are taking. Right. When you do the analysis, you find a way to enhance the value. When you do the communication, you also find a way to enhance the value. The final one is really a more important one, which is that how are we going to design the pricing structure in such a way that we can capture more of the value we have created in the marketplace. Okay? In that context, you're going to find that in any market, you're always going to face this problem. The problem is phenomenon. Actually, it's not a problem. You always will face this phenomenon. The phenomenon is that for exactly the same product, if this is some, let's suppose, a different brand, okay? This is glacier water from 20,000 years ago. At one point, I did drink a bottle of water that cost like $30. And that's from the Canadian glacier water. They said that the water was made over 20,000 years ago or something like that. Okay, and tastes very swampy, but they sell you for $30 a bottle. But in any case, the point is that if you have something different, I will show to everybody how much you're willing to pay. You're going to find that different people are willing to pay different amount for exactly the same product. So the point is that if I show you this bottle of water, you're going to find that different people are willing to pay different price. Okay, some people may be willing to pay $10. Some people willing to pay $8, $6, $4, and then $2. Okay, And typically, as a consultant, what we do is that we connected the heads of the snowman, okay? And then we have a so-called downward sloping demand curve. When we talk about demand curve, that's what it is. Behind the demand curve are the people who are willing to pay different amount for exactly the same product, okay? Imagine that it doesn't cost us anything to produce the product. Like in your industry, basically, you don't have a marginal cost, right? Once you have the software in place, and it doesn't cost you additional money to service anybody, okay? If that's the case, you see that there is this big triangle, right? You have a demand curve, you have a zero line over here. You see that there is a big triangle. The area of a big triangle stands for what? Can you tell? Profit? Well, you captured is profit, right? You haven't captured it, right? So that big area of a triangle is the value you have created with your product. It's just basically, I show everybody. You tell me you only need to pay $10, $8, $6, whatever, and you just add them up, right? That's the total value we have created with our product and or service in the marketplace. So from pricing point of view, what we want to do is to do everything possible to capture the whole triangle. Okay? In abstract, that's what we are trying to do. But in practice, of course, that is not that easy to do that, right? Because if you charge the price of $6, you see that there are people out there who are willing to pay $10 and $8, but they are only paying $6 simply because that's the price you're charging them. Okay? You have a small triangle at the top that's not captured. In the meantime, there are people who are willing to pay $4 and $2 to buy your product, but you're charging $6 price, they are not buying. Right? So that small triangle at the bottom is also not captured. What you're capturing is really the rectangle in the middle. Okay? When we talk about price optimization, when you hire a consultant to do this so-called price optimization, what they're normally trying to do is to find the biggest rectangle possible. That's the process they go through. Try different price points, see which price point will give you bigger area for that rectangle. Okay? That's what it is. Okay? That's why in practice, when we make our pricing decisions, okay, we always struggle and debating about whether we should go after high margin or we should go after high volume. Right? If you go after high margin, which basically means you want to make it a small triangle at the top to be as small as possible. Okay? But in the meantime, you realize that the triangle at the bottom is opening up. Right? But if you want to go after high volume strategy, which basically means you want to lower the price. Okay? You want to make the small triangle at the bottom to be as small as possible. But then, of course, you realize that the triangle at the top is becoming bigger. Okay? That has always been the problem, okay? And so that's why in practice that it's hard to make a pricing decision, hard to make that trade-off, okay? But what I want to tell you is that there is one big principle you always want to remember, okay? Which is that when you set your prices, you always want to do everything possible to go after high margin and high volume simultaneously. If you have to debate about whether it should be high margin or high volume, you know you're not doing the right thing. Okay? You should come up with a better idea to go after the high margin and high volume simultaneously. And you would ask yourself, how are you going to do that? Who doesn't want to do that? Right? There are so many different ways to do it. Okay? One of the first way you could do this is actually pretty standard practice today. Okay? This is actually given by this example by Parker Hannifin. Parker Hannifin is essentially that produce over 800,000 different products. This is essentially what they do. They have 800,000 different products. Most of those products are different nuts and bolts and aviation parts and also the automotive parts. Okay, and for 800,000 different products, they have to set a price. The way they set a price is to do cost accounting for every one of those products. Okay? Then your price for that product is going to equal to 1 plus a 35% markup. For manufacturing industry, 35% markup is actually pretty high. For you guys, it probably is low. Okay? And so you put a 35% markup on whatever the cost that you would have incurred to produce that particular product. Okay? With one formula, you set the prices for all 800,000 different products. Okay? But the new CEO came along, basically realized that doesn't make any sense. The reason is because out of this 800,000 products, we have a certain product where we have patent on it. And we are the only game in town. And we are very, very competitive in the marketplace. In fact, those are the aviation parts, okay? Those buyers really just worry about the quality, they don't worry about the price. So he classified that as type 1 product, okay? You also have this type 4 products, okay? Type 4 product is a product where the nuts and the bolts, and we can produce them, so do many other companies from Asia, India, and so on, okay? So those are the type 4 products. And then by the same set of criterion, you have the type 2 and type 3 products, okay? Once they have done that, here's what they did. This is, well, why don't we just have a 45% markup on the type 1 product? We have 40% markup for type 2 product. We have a 35% markup and for the type 3. And we have type 4 is 25% markup, okay? The idea here is that we want to have a pricing structure where we can go after the volume over here. We can simultaneously also go after the margin over here. Right? You don't want to have a uniform pricing here. Okay? Because of this, just read this Wall Street Journal article. It basically says the company's earnings increased by over $200 million a year. In fact, that I called the company up and I said, oh, I'm going to write a case for you. Okay, just basically get more details about this particular case. We're going to teach this in the business school. And initially they agreed. And then the next day they said, no, we're not going to do it because our customer will be really mad if they know. Okay, in pricing that's normally the case. Okay, so if you do something, you just do it, and you don't have to publicize it. Okay, but in any case, so this is essentially one illustration where indeed if you have a more sophisticated pricing structure, you can simultaneously go after the volume and the margin. Okay, and of course, there are lots of different ways to do this, especially in your industry. This is what you want to, this is a book you want to read, okay? This is a book written by Halvarian, that's the chief economist at Google, and he was my dissertation advisor. I do read everything he writes, and in fact, this is a very good book. It's really talk about in software industry, in the information industry, how you go about doing your pricing structure in such a way that you can go after high margin, high volume simultaneously, okay? The basic idea is something that we all know, okay? For instance, in the airline industry, they do this. They do this so-called versioning, okay? In the marketplace, you just know that there are business travelers, there are economy, there are leisure travelers. Leisure travelers are they spend their own money. They're very price sensitive, okay? Business travelers like you, okay, you spend company's money to buy the tickets. You're not as price sensitive, right? You don't internalize every dollar you spend, okay? So you can imagine that from airline's point of view, I want to charge business travelers a higher price than for the leisure travelers. But you have the same flight. How are you going to charge different prices, right? So what they do is they do some analysis of the customers. They're going to find out that leisure travelers, they are very price sensitive, but they are not comfort sensitive, right? But for business travelers, you are very price insensitive, but you're very comfort sensitive, right? So if I pack some pre-flight and during flight, after flight services into your flight, I call that business class, and I can charge a high price. And then of course, for economy class, and there is no services, and I will charge a low price. Then what you do is to have both classes and list it to all the consumers. Let the consumers do the so-called self-selection. Consumers will self-select which package they're going to buy. Okay? Nominally, that's what it is. But we know as a pricer that we're designing the incentives to motivate the people to do the things we want them to do. Right? As a pricer, that's essentially what we do. We design different incentives to motivate different people to do different things. Okay? For instance, if I want to motivate more people to buy business class, you actually have 4 ways to do it. One way to do it is basically is to perk it down, make it so uncomfortable, so embarrassing to travel by economy. Everybody will fight for the business class, right? Or you actually raise the price from the low end, squeeze people over, okay? Or in fact, you can perk it up from the high end, right? Have more services for business class. You induce people to jump over the fence. Or you lower the price from the high end, okay, to draw people over the fence, okay? in the airline industry, you know what happens, right? Basically, what they do is today is that they really perk it up for the business class, for economy class, for international flights. You notice this, right? International flights especially. And for the business class, it's just so comfortable. You can lie all the way down. For the economy, they just pack you up in the back, okay? And by the way, this is not the end of it, okay? Airline industry is really studying the new seats in the airplanes. They basically know that for domestic flights, if you fly only for like a couple hours, you don't have to sit all the way down, right? You can sit halfway down, okay? You sit halfway down, that will increase the capacity by 20%. In turn, they can offer all kinds of discount to you. So this is coming, okay? This is so-called cattle class. And you can, by the way, this sort of a versioning happens everywhere. Let me give you one more example. I want to jump to different things and to wrap it up. And IBM, for instance, at one point produced laser printer. I'm sure that many of you remember that before laser printer, we were using dot matrix printer, right? The quality of printing was really not that good, okay? And laser printer came out. You can imagine that a lot of large consulting companies, large law firms, they're willing to pay, let's suppose, $1,000 to buy the laser printer, okay? It only costs them, let's say, $250 to produce it, okay? But in the meantime, you also know that some small companies, they are also willing to pay something to buy the laser printer, right? Let's suppose $600, okay? So in this case, you can imagine that IBM really had a problem. The problem is that if you set a price at $1,000, only big companies will buy the product, okay? Small companies, huge number of small companies, they're not paying the $600 to buy a product. Okay, but if you charge a $600 price, you can imagine you leave a lot of money on the table for the big companies, right? They're willing to pay $1,000. You only charge them $600. That's essentially you have a big triangle or the big triangle at the top, a big triangle at the bottom. Okay, so what IBM decided to do was very clever. So what they do is that when they produce the laser printer, it will print out naturally 10 pages per minute. Okay. Then you insert a chip into it, slow it down to 5 pages per minute. And then you have a second version of your laser printer. Okay? One you sell for $1,000, the other one you sell for $600. Okay? Let the consumer decide which one you want to buy. Obviously, big companies will buy a $1,000 machine and because of the speed, and small companies would buy the $600 price. In fact, it costs IBM more to produce the lower price product. Okay? Typically, that's the case. You want to dumb it down, damage the product in some way, and to separate this market. By the way, you notice in your company when you receive the FedEx packages, ask them, okay? They have this so-called priority overnight, which basically means they're going to deliver everything to you by 10 o'clock next day, right? 10 o'clock next day and delivery. So that's the priority overnight. You also have a standard overnight. That's delivered by 3 o'clock next day, okay? You can imagine at Wharton, we receive so many FedEx packages. Early in the morning, all those packages are loaded in the truck already. When they come to Wharton to deliver the priority, what are they going to do with the standard, you think? Huh? They will deliver the standard too, right? Because you can save on the labor costs, okay? But they don't. Sometimes they don't. I ask them, because they're basically saying that if we do that every time, imagine nobody's going to use priority. Okay? What you want to do is sometimes you dump everything to save labor costs. Sometimes you don't. You just want to introduce some doubts in the minds of the consumers so that if the package has to get there by next day, 10 o'clock, you have to use a priority. You see that you incur more labor costs in order to separate these two versions. Okay? So in the software industry, I'm sure you always use this trick. And to make sure that you can charge different prices for more or less the same kind of a product, right? And by the way, if you look into this big data AI thing, okay? Essentially what they are trying to do is to cut the consumer data in so many different ways to find the different variations in consumer willingness to pay and tailor your price to individuals. All in the effort to capture the whole triangle, right? Remember, for this particular triangle, if I have enough data, I figure out there are people who are willing to pay $10. I know who they are. They all have a sticker on their head, okay? And then some people willing to pay $8, they also have a sticker on their head. I can charge different people a different price, right? Capture the whole triangle. That's essentially where all this AI, dynamic pricing, and big data efforts are gearing toward, okay? So that's essentially, you see why they want to do that, okay? You see why they want to do that. And indeed, you also now should realize that why exactly that if we use more price levers, okay, and you may actually have a higher growth rate, simply because you capture more, okay? And this study basically says that more price levers, in fact, can lead to higher ASP, okay, average selling price. And indeed, that if you look into the theory, okay, and it turned out that it doesn't have to go that way. It could very well be the case that if you use more levers, your average selling price can go down. Okay, in this particular industry may not, but in some other industry may go down. But even if it does go down, your profitability is still going to increase. Okay, the reason you saw why, because you capture all those small triangles. Okay, so that's what it is. By the way, and I want to actually give you this further example to illustrate that the pricing is such a flexible tool. Okay, if you're clever enough, you just figure out a good way to do it, you're going to capture more and more of a consumer and surplus, capture more and more of the value you have created in the marketplace. Okay, we're going to start with this example. This example actually was an example for the movie pass. Okay, I don't know, for those of you who live in New York City, you know that a movie pass will charge you a certain amount of money, and with that you can watch as many movies as you want. Okay, it turned out that this particular company has lost a horrendous amount of money up to this point. Okay, they just burning the investors' money and like crazy. Okay, here's what happens. Okay, so let's imagine in the marketplace we have two segments of consumers. Okay, you have heavy users and the light users. Normally in the information industry and software industry, and those are the two key segments of the consumers. Some use a lot, some use very little. Okay, and the information I gave to you is really this. And heavy users would watch 12 movies. Only watch 12 movies. Of course, depending on the price, it may change a little bit. But we just look at the first order effect. Okay, so heavy users would watch 12 movies a month. And their willingness to pay for each movie is only $2. Okay? And there are 20 of those kind of customers in the marketplace. You could say 20%. That's fine. Okay? And but we just want to do some quick illustration, so use some numbers that we can easily calculate. Okay? You have light users, they only watch 5 movies a month. Okay? And their willingness to pay is $3 per movie. Okay? Typically, people like you probably don't watch a lot of movies, right? So you're pretty busy. So definitely that your income is much higher than those people who have nothing else to do, just watch movies all the time, right? So that's what this data would reflect, okay? And then you have 80 of those people, okay? Lay users, you have 80 of those people, okay? And or 80%, that's fine, okay? So in this case, for instance, most consultants, if they are not trained in pricing, they don't really know how to use the so-called nonlinear pricing. What will happen is that they would actually use the data, come up with a demand curve. Okay, this demand curve, of course, only have 2 points. Right, one point is at the $3 per movie price, you're going to sell 400 movies. Why? Because at the $3 price, you're only going to have light users and watching the movie. Okay, so 5 times 80, that gives you 400 movies. So each one of them are going to watch 5 movies, right? So that's essentially the first point. The second point is that if you charge a price of $2, you're going to see that both light users and heavy users will watch movies. Okay, that's why the demand is going to increase to 640. We only need a few more minutes, okay, very quickly. So in this case, in fact, that we can easily calculate what is the value potential in this particular market. Okay, value potential is just everything under the demand curve. Remember, above the cost line. Okay, so in this case, essentially that is going to be $1,040. Okay, if you just, I cannot point to you, but if you do the calculation, it's very easy to see where is the market potential, right? You calculate this area, 3 minus 1 And so this is 2 times 400, that's 800, right? And then plus this 2 minus 1 is equal to 1, 1 times this 240. You add it up, that's market potential. That's essentially the total value we can capture from this particular marketplace, okay? But most people who are not trained in the pricing, what they do is that they will come up with a optimum linear price for each movie. They would say, well, each movie I'm going to charge this price, see how much I can capture, okay? It turned out in this case, optimum price will be $3 per movie, okay? And if you charge $3 per movie, okay, 3 minus 1 equal to 2 times 400, that give you the $800 profit, okay? $800 profit relative to the profit potential of $1,040, you capture about 77%. Okay, that's the capture rate. Okay, and typically when you use a linear pricing, that's not a very sophisticated pricing tool, and you don't capture a whole lot. But over here, illustration, and with this particular illustration, we capture a lot. Okay, and then you realize that in fact we have some other way to set the prices. For instance, we can easily do a flat fee pricing. Okay, that's what many of us do, right? You have a flat fee pricing for the customer, basically saying you pay this fee, okay, for the rest of the month. You just watch as many movies as you want, okay? And when you do the flat fee pricing, essentially what you do is to cut the consumer data in different way. You ask yourself, okay, if I have to charge a flat fee, how much maximum that late users are willing to pay? That would be $15, right? You watch 5 movies, each movie you're willing to pay $3, that's $15. But for heavy users, how much you're willing to pay? This is going to be $24, okay? So in this case, you have a choice between $15 and $24. It turned out that the optimum price in this case, okay, is $15 flat fee. You charge a $15 flat fee, and you can watch as many movies as you want and in a month, okay? And total profit you are able to capture in this case is going to be $860. And your capture rate will increase from 77% to 80, almost 83%, okay? So in this case, you use nonlinear pricing. You cut the data in a different way, okay? You see that your capture rate will increase, okay? But when you use a flat fee price, I'm sure you will encounter a lot of problems, right? The problem is that if you put everybody on the flat fee, imagine that when you go to a buffet restaurant, you notice this phenomenon. The phenomenon is that you go to a buffet restaurant, you're going to eat as much as you can bear, right? Because there is no additional fee you have to pay for the food you eat, okay? And by the way, there's a really interesting story coming out of American Airlines, okay? And American Airlines, at one point, back in 1980s actually, and they started this flat fee pricing for the first class flights. If you pay $250,000, which is equivalent to $560,000 today, okay, and you can fly unlimited first class travel for life. Would you buy tickets like this? Huh? Yes, some of you would do that. In fact, depending on how old you are. Okay, if you're young, you probably don't want. Young, you want to do it, or you don't want to do it.
Long time to fly.
Well, young, you don't have time to do all that, right? So you basically have to work. Okay, and so what happened was that there is this guy. It's really amazing. It's actually an investor. I don't know if he works for Edison or not, but it's an investor, very smart investor. He basically take a mortgage, okay, to buy this ticket. He basically realized if you buy this particular ticket, you don't even need to have a house. You just live the first class life every day, okay? Right? There is no limitation to it, okay? And this guy, you see that you had 1,000 flights to New York City, and you have like 120 flights to Tokyo. If you want to eat Japanese food, you just take on the first class and go to Japan. Afterwards, you just fly back, right? You don't have to stay anywhere. Basically, all the food, all the everything is taken care of, okay? And so American Airlines really realized they made a huge mistake. Today, they're hiring lawyers to try to get those people out of the contract, okay? It's hard to do that, okay? It's hard to do that. But in any case, the movie pass really has the same problem. When you have a flat fee price, and what happens is that a lot of people just watch a lot of movies. When they watch a lot of movies, and the movie pass have to pay the theaters to get those tickets. So that's why they burn in so much money. In fact, if I was advising movie pass, there was some very little trick you could do that could stop all that. Okay. So here's basically the next thing you could do. You could do the so-called two-part tariff. Okay, two-part tariff. Two-part tariff is basically that you charge a membership fee. With that membership fee, and you basically, for every time you watch a movie, I charge you very little. Okay, I charge you very little. Like at Costco, right? Costco will charge you a membership fee, and once you pay the membership fee, you walk inside, and for every unit you purchase, and you pay a very low price. Okay, and so that's the two-part tariff. Indeed, in our case, if you do a two-part tariff, okay, optimum two-part tariff would be typically a rule of thumb is this. And the marginal price, usage price, should be based on your marginal cost. Costco will tell you that's exactly what they do. They basically tell you that everything they sell inside the store are sold based on the cost. This is fully allocated cost, of course. Okay? And they don't make money at all by selling all those goods. The only money they make, the profitability they make, is out of the membership fees. Okay? So in this case, what you could do is to charge $1 per movie. Okay? But you charge everybody who want to watch a movie $10 as a membership fee. Okay? If you do that, you're going to see that your profitability will increase to $1,000. Okay? Your capture rate is going to be 96%. Okay? So that already increased. You see that you have more sophistication. Okay? And you capture more. Okay? You capture more. By the way, in this particular situation, you can capture 100%. How would you do that? Can you see? If we literally have the data like this from the marketplace, we can design a pricing structure that can capture 100% from this particular market. Right? What do you do is to do this so-called two-tiered pricing. Okay? Two-tier pricing in this case is basically tier 1. I'm going to charge you $15 flat fee, and you can watch up to 5 movies. Okay? Number 2 is $24. You can watch up to 12 movies. Okay? If you do that, you see that you capture the whole thing. Okay? It's going to be 100%. Okay? Totally 100%. So here, basically, the illustration is that it does pay for you to hire some pricing consultant, look into your situation. Okay? Especially for the talks like this. I think Chris should do more. Right? And it does, depending on how you design the tool, and you will capture different amount. Okay? If one of your companies and actually sort of is inspired by this, go home and actually try this. And you're going to see that you would generate enough new additional income that will cover whole conference costs, I'm sure. Okay. Anyway, so in summary, essentially, here's what we have been saying. Okay. In pricing, you want to take those 4 steps. Don't take the shortcut. Okay. Measure the value drivers. Okay. And then what you want to do is enhance the value, okay, before you sell anything. And then, of course, you have to communicate the value before you sell, before you before you sell to the customers. And then finally, you want to design a clever pricing structure to capture the value. If this doesn't sound very concrete yet to you, here's the book you got to read. Okay, you'll be smart if you read this. Okay, and smart pricing. Okay, it's actually very, very readable. We do sell a large number of these books, and I personally have trained over 10,000 executives. Okay, in pricing. I think that a lot of people really feel like they are inspired to work more on value capturing instead of on the value creation. Okay. What? We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right. Thank you.